are hundreds, if not thousands of books about the topic of reading tarot cards. But if you're new to tarot and want to develop your understanding of the cards a little bit further, how do you choose? In this video, I'm going to share my experiences about the tarot books that I have in my collection. So let's dive in. So whether you've recently got your first tarot deck or perhaps you have been reading the cards for a while now, the chances are you want to delve a little bit deeper and go to the next stage of your tarot journey. And to do that, you'll most probably like to get yourself a tarot reference book. Now, the 4 books that I have in my collection come up on the first page of an Amazon search for tarot books. So the chances are you will definitely come across these. And if I can do anything today, it's to give you a little bit more insight into these books and the kind of information that you can expect to get from one of these 4 books. Now, what I'm going to do is give you a general overview about the content of the book, but then also give you direct examples of the information they give about each card, because ultimately I think that's probably why you want the book, is to understand the meanings and ways that you can connect with those cards. So I'll start by going through the order that I got them and then follow on with the comparison. Now, I should say I didn't actually do any research into getting my first tarot book. I just went to see what they had in the local bookstore and took it from there. And maybe if I'd thought about it, I would have gone away and done a bit of research. It's not to say that I don't like the books I have, but you know, when you get your decks, you do research, you watch reviews, and perhaps I should have done the same thing. So I'm hoping to help you avoid making that mistake with the information that I give today. Comment below, actually, if you're at that stage where you're getting ready to get your first book, and kind of the content that you're looking for from this book to help you with your tarot journey. But let's get back to the review. Okay, first up we have Tarot by Tina Gong, and this was published by DK Publishing in the UK. I've got to be honest, the reason I got this book was because of the beautiful illustrations that Tina Gong has produced to accompany her book. This has also been published as a tarot deck, and as far as I understand it, when it was released in America, it actually came with the tarot deck, or there was an option for you to buy it with the tarot deck. Sadly, in the UK, that didn't happen, and I really wanted this deck at the time. And I did try, Tina Gong has her own website, but sadly, for some reason, they weren't shipping the decks out to the UK. That may have changed now, but I think I sort of moved on, found other decks, and just decided just to keep it as the illustrations in the book. I really like the way that this book has been laid out. It's very it's simple to follow, and you get the history of tarot, why people like to read tarot. You get an anatomy of the deck, so how the 78 cards have been split up, so obviously the major and the minor arcana, but it also talks about numerology, it talks about the energies of the suits and their connection to their corresponding elements, information about the energies of the separate court cards, how to read reversals. What I particularly like about this book is Tina Gong has provided quite a big range of spread ideas, in particular a big variety of 3 card spreads, so which she has split into things like decision making or daily check-in or working towards your goals, which I think I find really useful, and it just expands upon the traditional past, present, future spread that you typically get with the 3 card spread. So I found that really valuable. Tina has also interspersed real life readings throughout the book using the Celtic cross, and so if you're interested in using the Celtic cross, it's quite interesting to see how she has interpreted the Celtic cross for the specific question for the person that she was reading for. The rest of the book is dedicated to the individual cards, and each card has a double page spread with a full-size image of the card with some 4 or 5 keywords for both upright and reversals. And then on the opposite page she has given you quite an in-depth breakdown of the meanings for both upright and reversal meanings for each card, which is interpretation, reflection and action. And in the action part there's actually a couple of questions which Tina has included for you to consider, which is pertinent to the card that you've chosen, and getting you to consider how that fits in with the question that you've been asking about, and some things that for you to consider. I get the feeling that this book is really designed for people that want to use tarot for personal use, and so there is this thread of self-reflection running throughout the book. And somewhere in the book Tina talks about how tarot has been a big part of her life and how she has used it as a tool for personal growth. And I think particularly if you're using tarot for personal growth, this is probably a good book for you because of the questions of reflection and action points that Tina has provided you. Overall, I think this is a really beautiful book. I did find that actually, because there's quite a lot of information for each card, particularly when I was starting out, I did find it quite overwhelming. Because I have such a bad short-term memory, and I find it difficult to retain the information that I've read. So if you find that the book that has accompanied whichever deck that you are working with, and you just want a little bit more information about that card, I think this book is great for that because it is a little bit more in depth. However, if you just want a quick snap statement to help sum up this card, this book will give you above and beyond that, and it might be more information that you need at that particular time. Next up we have The Little Book of Tarot by Xanna Chown, and honestly, considering the size of this book, there's quite a lot of information packed in here. With the major cards then, you have a double page spread. On one side there's a paragraph to describe what is in the image of the card, and then you have a statement for the upright and the reversed meanings. Then on the opposite page you have a picture of the card, and then there's just 3 bullet points to summarize both upright and reversed meanings. And then what I really like about this is they've included a quote underneath this, some from, you know, a philosopher or an artist or whoever, to summarize the energy of the card. So that was a really nice touch in this book. However, for the minor cards, there really isn't that much information, so it's been split. So rather than splitting it into suits, it's split into like numbers, so you have all the aces together, all the twos together, etc. And you have 2 very brief sentences for each card, one for the upright and one for the reversed meanings, and that is also true for the court cards. So the rest of this book is made up of additional information, so there's quite a few different spreads in there. There's also example readings, there is exercises that you can do to connect with the cards, so not necessarily readings but little things that you can do to help you remember the meanings of maybe the suits or the court cards, which I quite liked. And there's also a bit about spiritual work, so how you might want to go about cleansing your deck before you use it. And there's a little bit about working with chakras, which I thought was quite a nice touch. And as I said, yeah, there's quite a lot of information. Obviously this is a quick reference book, and because of the size of it, it is quite transportable, so if you were going on public transport you'd probably opt for this rather than one of the bigger books. I think there's enough information in here to get you started, but if you're looking for an in-depth reference guide, then this probably isn't the book that you're looking for. And next up we have The Ultimate Guide to Tarot by Liz Dean. This book is specifically relevant to the iconic and influential deck Rider-Waite-Smith, so all of the information in that book is specific to the cards in this deck. It is quite a comprehensive book. So the beginning of this book has a brief history of tarot. There's a little bit specifically about the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It talks about the evolution of the court cards, and then a little bit about its connection to tarot's meaning to astrology and Kabbalah, and they've included quite a useful page which shows all of the major cards side by side and the minor cards, also information about how the suits connect to different elements, so on and so forth. There is a clear guidance on how you might like to begin your tarot journey, and cleansing your deck and protecting your cards, how to go about shuffling, information about how you can connect with the cards and working intuitively. There's also a couple of layouts, one of which includes how to use the cards for a yes/no answer, and I hadn't seen this in my other two books, so that was really interesting. The way it works is you ask a question and different cards are either assigned a yes or a no. There's also a couple of neutral cards in there, and I've used that a few times, and I've tried to listen to the cards even though I wanted them to give me a different answer, but you know, it's a work in progress. Where this book comes into its own is the in-depth information about the cards. You get a full tarot card size image on each page as well, which allows you to, if you don't have the deck already, to really look into the pictures. So the major cards have 4 pages dedicated to them, which includes a lot of information. So the history of the card, its connection to astrology and the Kabbalah, upright and reverse meanings. There's also quite a lot of information about the symbols that Pamela Coleman Smith included in her decks, stuff that you wouldn't even realise. So one thing to be aware about the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is that everything you see in those cards have been put there for a purpose, right down to the colour, and this book breaks it down for you and explains everything you need to know about the images in that card, which, if you're looking to take your tarot knowledge to the next level, I'd say this is a really good book for that. The final thing that Liz Dean has included for each card is a spread specific to that card. So each card in the major arcana has its own spread where you use the full say as the significator, and then you have a spread to work around it. So for instance, if you were having relationships problems, you could use the love spread that has been included in this to help you work out what's going on. The minor arcana has a double page spread, again with the picture. There's information about the significance of that card, but then it's the information is a lot more simple. You just get upright and reversible meanings. Towards the back there is an appendix which has information about working with chakras. There's also like a table which says about the cards and what their astrological sign is, so like a quick reference, what the element is assigned to that card as well, which is really useful, particularly for the major cards. All in all, this, if you're interested in tarot, this is a fascinating book. So I didn't get this until a couple of years into my tarot journey, and when I got it initially I was like, oh, I wish I'd bought this earlier and I would have known this or I would have known that. But actually, on reflection, I think if I'd bought this right at the beginning of my journey, because there's so much information and it really is quite overwhelming, and I think possibly if I'd got this book straight away, I don't know if it would have put me off, but I think because I obsess about detail, I think it almost would have taken away the joy of trying to work a bit more intuitively and try to connect with the cards on my own way first. But definitely once you've worked with the cards for a while, I think an essential book to have in your collection, because it really goes to the roots. And bearing in mind the Rider-Waite-Smith deck has been so influential, it gives you a really solid foundation from where all of these cards are coming from, regardless of what deck you're using. It really sort of gets to the nitty-gritty of what these cards are about. Finally then, the last book in my tarot book collection, and I recently got this one, Tarot by Taschen, and it's part of the library of Esoterica, So they've got quite a few books in this collection now. There's one on witchcraft, there's one on dreams, I think there's one on herbs. And as you'd expect, so if you're not familiar with Taschen typically produce really high quality art books, and so this book is quite different in that it's not really a book about learning how to read tarot. It explores tarot from the visual side and the art perspective. So at the beginning of this book there is an introduction which talks about tarot and how artists in particular have been really drawn to this mysterious practice. There's also a comprehensive timeline right back to the Middle Ages where tarot first sort of came into awareness, existence. I mean, there is some debate as to whether it goes further back in terms of ancient Egypt, but generally speaking people look to the Middle Ages as to when it first sort of came in, and it's really interesting to see how it evolved in this time span. I really found the timeline fascinating to see how it sort of progressed through society. Then they've also included several iconic decks from this period, one of which is the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, of course, but they've also included the Tarot of Marseille and other early pioneering decks from sort of in the days when, you know, tarot art was probably hand painted and so on and so forth. The rest of the book is then dedicated to each card. Now, they have included a few keywords, the names of each card from different countries, so what they're known in different languages. But generally speaking, this is a book all about the images, so all about how different artists have interpreted each of the cards. And if you collect tarot decks, and you like looking at different tarot art, then I would definitely recommend this book, because they have included examples of decks that are limited edition or no longer in print, and probably works that you might not have seen in the past. So and from all different eras as well, so you know, the early sort of Renaissance-y type art to stuff from a couple of years ago. And so it's kind of one of these books that if you have on your coffee table, you can just pick it up and flick through it and just enjoy looking at the different artwork. If you purely want a book about learning how to read the cards and the meanings of the cards, this book probably isn't for you. Thought I'd just do a quick comparison showing you an example of the information you get for one major card and one minor card. So Tina Gong, for the Fool, you have your full colour illustration, quite a few upright and reverse keywords, and this book has been organised so all the upright meanings are on one side and reverse on the other. As I said, she split it into interpretation for upright, reverse, reflection, both orientations, and then the action points. She typically gives 3 action points for the upright position and 2 action points for the reverse position. As I said, for the minor cards, you get the same amount of information, so it follows the same format as we saw in the full card. For the little book of tarot then, obviously the page is a lot smaller, so less space for information. This paragraph here just describes what we see in the card. I'll zoom in a little bit. And then you have a bullet point for the upright meaning and a bullet point for the reversed meaning. Here are your at a glance keywords for both orientations, and as I mentioned, you get this nice little quote which summarizes the energy of the card. So in terms of our minor cards then, as I said, they're all grouped together, so all of the aces, all of the twos, and we can see that there's a very short sentence for upright and for reversed, which pretty much mimics the 3 keywords used in our major card descriptions. Gosh, this book is so big, I've had to really zoom out and adjust the position of my camera. So with your major cards, you have the full illustration for a standard tarot card. You have a quick glance of different names for the card, some information about numerology, astrological or planet information, elements, Hebrew letter, and various symbols, meanings and connection to the tree of life and chakras, and some key meanings at the bottom here. This paragraph is putting the full card into context, which continues up over here. We have a little bit more about the astrology and the Kabbalah. So for those of you that are really into the spiritual side of tarot, this is quite interesting information. We have some information for the upright, and she's also included specific situations where you might want to be focusing on. Reversal, this is the section about the symbols that you can find within the full card. The green box here is putting whatever character or whatever image is on the card into some sort of context. Here you have the spread, which has been specifically designed for using the full card. For our minor cards, again, we have a full colour illustration. There's a little bit of information up here, but that really focuses on the element, astrological association, its number, tree of life, and key meanings. Again, there's a little bit about understanding the card in general, and we just have upright reversed meanings. There's also some information here about if you get duplicates of the same card in a spread. So if you were to get 2, 3 or 4 aces, or whatever card it is you're dealing with, which is quite interesting additional information to evolve your tarot practice. So the Taschen book about tarot, you have kind of a chapter on the full. So there's an example of the card, qualities, symbols, various names for the full in English, and then we have German, French and Italian. Now presumably these languages have been selected because tarot seemingly evolved in the European countries. We've also got the element and the planet connection at the top here. A little bit of information to delve into the full a bit further, and the rest of it is followed by different examples of how different artists have interpreted the card. As I said, if you love your art history or just tarot art in general, this is a real treat going through here and seeing the similarities and differences, of course. For the minor cards, you have a similar page with information about the qualities and the astrology connection, a little bit of information about each of the 14 cards with whichever suit it is. I've just chosen ones here because we've been looking at ones cards, and then you just have a selection of different cards from the wands suits from different decks. So you get quite a selection. So then, to sum up about these books, I would say if you are using tarot for self-reflection, personal growth, personal development, then the Tina Gong book will definitely provide you with a framework and some questions to help you on your personal growth journey. If you are somebody that just wants quick reference and information summarized in a way that's easy to remember, then the Little Book of Tarot might be a good option for you. However, if you want a real deep dive into tarot as a holistic practice to understand where these ideas come from and to delve a little bit deeper into the symbology, connections to astrology and the Kabbalah, then of course the Ultimate Guide to Tarot will give you that information. On the other hand, if you are just a fan of tarot art and interested in the history and how it has evolved, then of course the Taschen book of tarot, part of the library of Esoterica, might just tick that box for you and give you a real treat of different examples of tarot art. But what do you think? Do you have any of these books in your collection, or do you have a tarot book which I haven't mentioned? I'm sure you do. And can you recommend any books that I might want to add to my collection? Because I do like tarot books. I do find them fascinating, as I do with the tarot and oracle decks that I have. So I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. Thank you for joining me today. I hope for some of you that review and comparison was useful. Let me know if you've decided to give any of these books a go as well. If this video was helpful, then I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like. And if you would like more tarot related content from me, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm Sally and this is my channel, Vaudeville Manor, House of Art and Tarot. Thanks ever so much for watching, and until the next video, bye bye.